From the very first moment Daniel stepped into his new home, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: peace. The yard was spacious, the tall wooden fence wrapped around the back like a comforting hug, and the forest beyond whispered promises of quiet evenings. After years of city noise, Daniel thought he had finally found a place to breathe. But only 3 mornings into his new life, that peace cracked. Literally. The sound of splintering wood woke him with a jolt. Rushing outside, he froze at a sight that made his blood run cold. Karen, the neighbor he had briefly met during move-in, stood with a hammer in her hand, smashing down a section of his fence. Her teenage son stood nearby, casually sipping a soda, watching her like it was nothing unusual. Daniel's voice trembled between shock and disbelief. "What are you doing? That's my fence!" Karen turned, eyes flashing with entitlement. "Oh, don't be dramatic. This shortcut makes it easier for us to reach the street. It's just a fence, you'll live." Daniel blinked. Shortcut? His fence stood on his private property, yet she acted like it was a community gate. He tried to explain, but she rolled her eyes. "Stop being selfish. Everyone around here uses paths. You'll get used to it." Then she left, striding right through the gap she'd made, as if she had done him a favor. That was the first time Daniel realized his new home wasn't a sanctuary, it was a battlefield. And the war had just begun. In the days that followed, the nightmare grew worse. Karen and her son used the gap in the fence like it was their personal door. Every day, Daniel watched strangers stomp through his yard, cutting across as if they owned it. He tried patching the fence, nailing boards back in place, but by morning it was down again. Once, he caught Karen in the act. "Karen, stop. This is trespassing," he exclaimed. She sneered, her voice laced with mockery. "Trespassing? Please. This is community land. You're new here, you don't understand how things work." Daniel's patience thinned, but what shocked him most was her lack of shame. Soon, it wasn't just footsteps. Trash appeared in his yard, crushed cans, candy wrappers, even the stench of dog waste. It wasn't hard to guess who left it. Daniel thought surely the HOA would help. He filed a complaint, showed photos of the damage, even receipts for repairs. But the response came cold and dismissive. "Karen is on the HOA committee. We can't get involved." Daniel's heart sank. The very people meant to protect him had already chosen sides. That night, he stood by his window, watching Karen laugh as she strolled through his yard under the moonlight. Something inside him hardened. He couldn't keep living like this. If no one would defend his property, he would have to defend it himself. And soon, he would discover the one loophole that could turn everything upside down. Daniel began documenting everything. Every broken board, every muddy footprint, every casual stroll through his yard, captured on camera. His phone filled with videos of Karen walking across his grass as if it were a public park. But evidence wasn't enough. The HOA shrugged him off, claiming community tradition outweighed his complaints. Karen, emboldened by their silence, only grew bolder. At the next HOA meeting, she stood with a smile plastered on her face. "Daniel's making a fuss over nothing," she announced, addressing the room like she was the voice of reason. "That path has always been there. He's selfish and unfriendly." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the board, most of them Karen's friends. Daniel clenched his fists, realizing logic wouldn't win this fight. That night, sitting among the chaos of his repair receipts and HOA letters, Daniel had an idea. A faint memory of something a friend once told him about property lines came back. Sometimes the power isn't in fighting, it's in owning. He pulled out the original county maps and studied every inch of land around his house. Then he saw it. A thin, forgotten strip of boundary land right behind his fence. It didn't belong to anyone, not yet. Daniel's pulse quickened. If he could buy that land, Karen wouldn't just lose her shortcut. She'd be trapped by the very boundary she tried to erase. For the first time since moving in, Daniel felt hope. The process wasn't simple. Daniel spent weeks navigating county offices, making calls, and filing paperwork. Each step felt like climbing uphill, but his determination carried him forward. Finally, one afternoon, he held it in his hands, the deed to the narrow boundary strip. That little piece of overlooked land was now his. And with it came the power to turn the tables on Karen. The next morning, workers arrived with tools and fresh lumber. Karen noticed instantly. She stormed out in her bright pink blazer, heels clicking angrily against the pavement. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded. Daniel, calm and steady, replied, "I'm building a new fence. On my land." She laughed. A sharp, mocking sound. "Your land? Don't kid yourself. That's community property." But when Daniel showed her the deed, her face faltered for the first time. Still, she recovered quickly, snapping, "This won't stand. You'll regret this." By sunset, the new fence rose tall and reinforced, stretching further than before, enclosing not just Daniel's yard but the boundary strip as well. Karen watched, fuming, as her shortcut vanished before her eyes. For the first time, Daniel stood tall, the balance of power shifting in his favor. But deep down, he knew Karen wasn't finished. She never admitted defeat so easily. Sure enough, Karen retaliated. The very next day, Daniel received a letter from the HOA claiming his fence violated community aesthetics. At the next meeting, Karen unleashed a dramatic performance, pretending to be the victim. "He's cutting us off," she declared, her voice breaking as if she were on stage. "We've used that path for decades. Now we're prisoners in our own neighborhood." Some board members nodded, but others remained quiet, their eyes flicking toward Daniel. He placed the deed on the table, his voice calm but firm. "This is legally mine. I haven't violated anything. If anyone is trespassing, it's her." The room fell into silence. Even Karen's allies couldn't argue with stamped legal documents. A few neighbors even whispered words of support to Daniel after the meeting. "We've seen what she does. It's about time someone stood up to her." Karen's mask of control cracked. She left the room red-faced, slamming the door behind her. Daniel walked out with a quiet smile. For the first time, he wasn't the one defending, Karen was. And she hated every second of it. Life grew calmer for a while. Daniel enjoyed his mornings again, sipping coffee in his yard without the constant intrusion. The fence stood strong, his sanctuary restored. But Karen's bitterness lingered. She glared at him whenever their eyes met, muttered insults within earshot, and spread rumors around the block. Yet her efforts only highlighted her desperation. Neighbors grew tired of her antics, siding silently with Daniel. Then came another twist, a thick envelope in Daniel's mailbox. Inside was a lawsuit. Karen had filed in county court, demanding the fence be removed and accusing him of stealing community property. For a brief moment, anxiety gnawed at Daniel. Court battles were messy. But when he showed the papers to his lawyer, the man chuckled. "She doesn't have a case. The deed makes this ironclad." Relief washed over Daniel, though he knew Karen would make the courtroom her stage. Still, he felt prepared. This wasn't just about land anymore, it was about standing firm against someone who believed rules never applied to her. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Karen strutted to the front, her voice dripping with false righteousness. "He's destroying our community spirit," she told the judge, gesturing dramatically toward Daniel. "That path has always belonged to us." Daniel, calm and steady, simply handed over the deed and a folder of evidence, photos, receipts, and maps. The judge examined them carefully, then looked at Karen with a weary expression. "Ma'am, this land clearly belongs to him. He has every right to fence it." Case dismissed. With one sharp strike of the gavel, it was over. Karen stood frozen, her face pale with shock. The courtroom murmured, and Daniel quietly gathered his things, walking out into the sunlight with a victorious smile. Back home, he sat in his peaceful yard, the fence casting long shadows as the evening sun dipped low. The war was over, and he had won not by yelling, not by stooping to Karen's level, but by standing his ground with patience and resolve. The boundary that once felt like a weakness had become his greatest strength, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you loved the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.